And the next step would be to detect and process typical values. As a matter of fact, in our action list, we've identified that some of the variables have some categories that aren't repeating so much in the observations, like the cultivar type, where the categories of semilla campesina and variedad are relatively low. In soil structure, suelta o polvoso has one observation, and runoff and moderate just one also. So I think that these are all the modifications that we should carry out for the qualitative variables specifically. So in this regards, we can use the function called filter. We already saw this in other videos. So the idea would be to remove those observations. We could take another decision if we want, either to group them or mix them with other categories that are similar to them in the same variable. But in the case, since there are a relatively low amount of them, I can do this. So I'm going to use the filter option, and I'm going to tell it that I'm going to begin with this variable called cultivar type. And I'm going to tell it that I'm interested in a specific set of those categories of those variables. So it will be everything that belongs to híbrido or hybrid or and OGM. By doing this, we should remove these observations that are in these categories. This is the ampersand symbol. This allows me to add an additional rule to this first filter that I'm doing. So the second rule would be to tell this variable called soil structure to not take into account all categories that aren't, all the categories that are suelta o polvosa. So I'm going to call this variable soil structure. And I'm going to indicate this exclamation mark or this equal sign, sorry, it would be different to. So it would be suelta o polvosa, different to suelta o polvosa. So I'm going to keep all of the others that are different to suelta o polvosa. And I'm going to add a final rule to remove this category in runoff. That's called moderate. So I'm going to write runoff here, and I'm going to tell it that I don't want moderate in the database. And once again, I forgot to add here the database. It's always important to take this into account. It would be the Base de Datos Mais or MAIS database. And then we can have the summary of the database. And now we can check and see. We can see here that moderate is in 0. I only have these two categories in this variable. I still have some suelta o polvosa here. I'm probably forgetting something. I think that this O would be in high cap. So let's change it here. I'm going to update it and execute it once again. And then repeat the summary. Now it's in 0. Semilla campesina isn't included. So we would only have left híbrido or OGM and OGM. So by doing this, we've already adjusted the database by removing those atypical values in the category variables. The next thing would be to do this for the numerical variables.